right, folks, let's dive right into this one, because you're not going to believe where this story goes. But before we start, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or town in the comments below. I love seeing how far these stories reach.
All right, y'all. I don't even know how to process this, but I need to lay it all out because it feels like I'm living in some kind of crime drama. So here's the backstory. I, 34F, have always had a pretty complicated relationship with my older sister, Lauren, 37F. Growing up, we were never exactly close, but things got next-level toxic after our parents passed away last year. Mom and Dad left behind a significant inheritance. We're talking a big chunk of money in a trust fund and the family home in Atlanta, Georgia. And here's the thing. They split everything equally between us in their will. Seemed fair, right? Well, apparently not to Lauren. According to her, she deserved more because she sacrificed so much to stay close to them while I was off living my selfish little life in Savannah. For context, I moved out of Atlanta almost 10 years ago for work. I'd visit on holidays and special occasions, but I wasn't there day to day like she was. I get that. But does that mean I owe her more of the inheritance? Absolutely not. At first, she was subtle about it, making little comments here and there. You know, stuff like, must be nice to swoop in and get half the estate when I'm the one who was here for Mom and Dad. Or, don't you think it's a little unfair that you get just as much when you didn't even help them toward the end? I tried to brush it off, thinking she was just grieving and lashing out. But as the weeks went on, it became clear that this wasn't about grief. It was about greed. The breaking point came when Lauren demanded the family home outright. She didn't ask. She demanded. She said, "You don't even need the house. You live in Savannah, and I've got 2 kids to think about. It only makes sense for me to have it." I calmly told her, "Lauren, we can't just ignore the will. The house belongs to both of us now, and we need to figure out a fair way to handle it." Well, that set her off like a firecracker. She started screaming about how I was selfish and heartless and how I only cared about the money. She said I didn't deserve any of it because I abandoned the family when I moved away. She even had the audacity to suggest I gift her the house as a way of making things right. No. Just no. After that conversation, things escalated fast. She started sending me these long, aggressive texts, calling me every name in the book, greedy, ungrateful, unworthy. She left voicemails saying, "You're ruining this family, and you'll regret being such a selfish bitch." I blocked her on everything, but that didn't stop her. She started bad-mouthing me to other family members, trying to turn them against me. She told them I was trying to take everything for myself, and that I didn't care about the family legacy. Thankfully, most of them didn't buy it, but it was exhausting having to defend myself every time she opened her mouth. What really started to freak me out, though, was how obsessed she became with the inheritance. She'd show up at my door unannounced, demanding that I do the right thing and sign the house over to her. When I refused, she'd pace around my living room, ranting about how unfair it all was. Once she even said, "You're lucky I haven't taken legal action yet, but don't push me." I told her to leave, and she slammed the door so hard on her way out that it knocked a picture off the wall. It wasn't just me, either. She started lashing out at other family members, too. Anyone who didn't take her side. She'd call them, yelling about how I was destroying her life and that I was forcing her to fight for what was rightfully hers. People started avoiding her altogether because she was so unhinged. And then there was the weird stuff she'd say to me directly. One time, we were at a family gathering. I know, why did I even go? And she pulled me aside, got right in my face, and said, "You'll regret this. You'll wish you had just given me what I wanted." Her tone was so cold, so menacing, it sent a chill down my spine. I asked her what she meant by that, and she just smirked and walked away. It felt like a threat, but I convinced myself I was being paranoid. I mean, this is my sister. She wouldn't actually do anything, right? At least, that's what I thought at the time. Looking back now, there were so many red flags that I ignored because I didn't want to believe she was capable of anything worse than her usual drama. But man, I was so wrong. All right, y'all, if you thought things couldn't get any worse, buckle up, because this is where it goes from bad to straight up terrifying. After that weird, cryptic threat Lauren made about me regretting everything, I tried to distance myself from her completely. I mean, I figured the less interaction I had with her, the better. I stopped going to family gatherings if I knew she'd be there. I didn't respond to her texts or calls, and I even made sure to update my home security system, just in case she decided to pull something petty, like showing up unannounced again. I was finally starting to feel a little calmer, like maybe the drama was starting to settle down. Boy, was I wrong. One day I was leaving my office in Savannah. It was a pretty normal day, nothing out of the ordinary. I was walking to my car in the parking lot when this man, probably in his late 40s, approached me. He was dressed casually, like he didn't want to draw attention to himself, but something about the way he was walking straight toward me set off alarm bells. He stopped a few feet away and said, "Are you my name?" I immediately got defensive. I mean, who just walks up to someone in a parking lot like that? I clutched my bag tighter and said, "Who's asking?" He looked around, like he wanted to make sure no one was listening, and said, "I need to talk to you. It's about your sister." At this point, my heart was pounding. I said, "What about her?" And that's when he dropped the bomb. She hired me to kill you, y'all. I literally froze, like my brain couldn't even process the words that just came out of his mouth. I thought maybe this was some kind of sick joke, but the look on his face told me he was dead serious. I managed to stammer out, "What the hell are you talking about?" He sighed, like this wasn't the first time he'd had to explain something like this, and said, "Look, I'm not going to do it. It didn't feel right, and I don't want any part of it. But I thought you should know." Then he pulled out his phone and started scrolling through what I can only describe as evidence. Text messages from Lauren, screenshots of payment receipts, even pictures of me, like candid photos of me walking my dog, leaving work, sitting at a cafe. She had been following me, tracking me, and she hired this guy to finish the job. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my own phone. I asked him, "Why are you telling me this? If you're so moral, why take the job in the first place?" He looked embarrassed and said, "I needed the money, okay? But I've got a conscience, and I don't want to go to jail for this." As horrifying as this whole situation was, part of me was grateful that he had a shred of decency left, because without him coming forward, I don't even want to think about what could have happened. After he left, I sat in my car for what felt like hours, trying to figure out what to do next. My first instinct was to call the police, but then I thought, what if they don't believe me? What if this guy's lying, and Lauren somehow spins this back on me? But then I looked at the screenshots again, and I knew I couldn't just sit on this. I went straight to the police station and handed over everything the guy had given me. They took it seriously, thank God, and started an investigation immediately. Within a few days, they had enough evidence to arrest Lauren. And y'all, she didn't even try to deny it. She acted like she was the victim, saying she forced me into this. If she had just given me what I deserved, none of this would have happened. Like, ma'am, you hired a hitman. That's not exactly a normal way to handle a sibling dispute. During the investigation, it came out that she'd been planning this for months. Months! She had been following me, tracking my routines, trying to find the perfect time to make it look like an accident. The fact that someone I shared my childhood with, someone who was supposed to love and protect me, could do something so calculated and evil, it broke me. The trial was a mess. Lauren tried to paint herself as this desperate single mom who just snapped under the pressure. Her lawyer tried to argue that it wasn't a serious plan, that she never intended for anything to actually happen. But the evidence spoke for itself. Between the text messages, the payment receipts, and the testimony of Hitman, there was no way for her to talk her way out of it. She was convicted of solicitation to commit murder and sentenced to prison. I wish I could say I felt relief when the verdict was read, but honestly, all I felt was sadness. Not for her, but for the fact that my relationship with her had come to this. How do you even begin to process the fact that your own sister tried to have you killed over money? Since then, I've gone completely no contact with her. I've also taken every precaution possible, changing my locks, updating my security system, even moving to a new place just to feel a little safer. My life will never be the same, but at least I'm alive to rebuild it. So yeah, Reddit, that's my story. I still can't believe this is my life, but I guess it just goes to show that greed can bring out the absolute worst in people, even your own family. TLDR, my sister hired a hitman to kill me over an inheritance dispute. The hitman backed out and warned me, and now she's in prison. My trust in humanity? Officially gone.